Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome to episode 2 of Punks and Pinfalls. This is GeeGee, and I'm here with
C-Dub.
And what you just heard was a little bit of Tear Out the Heart, who will be coming to Rockstar Pro Arena here very soon. That show is Saturday, January 24th. They're on Victory Records. Make sure you check out that show. And, alright, episode 2.
Yep,
we decided, we gave you a little bit of background. You know that C-Dub and I were both musicians and promoters, and we were in the music scene first, and that's how we kind of got into promoting events in pro wrestling. So we thought this episode would give you a little background on how we got into both. What made us love indie music and indie wrestling, since that is going to be the theme of this show. So, I guess we'll start with you, buddy. What were your early bands, records? What was music growing up from a little kid into your teens? What were the things that you loved?
For bands wise, it was kind of interesting because as like a young kid, it was like normal, like whatever I heard on the radio and stuff. And then pre-teens, I relocated and lived a few years in Germany. And what was interesting, and this involves Nirvana and kind of the effect it had on people and stuff, and kind of introduced me to punk rock. Living a few years in Germany, there was one channel on the TV that was in English. It was an Armed Forces Network channel, and you basically had to watch what was on there, you know. And being in Germany, Saturday Night Live was on late at night, but I really tried to stay up for it because I could kind of see what you know. This is
keep up with
this is
pop culture.
Not to give away my age here, but this is like pre-internet, so like everything's like magazines, you know. Yeah. Internet was just starting to invent, but simple folk like me, we had, you know, there's no going to the library or anything like that checking this stuff. So
yeah, people don't realize when we were kids, only doctors and lawyers had cell phones. Yeah. And they were the big, huge, Pauly Dangerously cell phones.
Dude, I remember it was a big damn deal that I got a pager. And I was like, oh, I got a pager. Lou, this is a nice one. It's got like 8 options on it and shit, you know. So, anyway, so Saturday Night Live was on late, and it was one of the shows you could watch. And actually, what was kind of interesting about wrestling, on a little side note, was being at Armed Forces Network, WWE allowed some of their pay-per-views to be showed on our station for free.
Oh, yeah?
Which was awesome, because you didn't know this. It was just randomly, holy shit, it's
also
it's
kid,
Rumble.
Yeah.
What? Who? What? This is amazing. And so I got to watch some pay-per-views for free, being part of the Armed Forces Network channel and stuff, which was great. But also, side note, back to Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live, one night I was watching was a band called Nirvana. And
a little band.
A little bit. Well, me, you know, I'm not in America. I don't know that this band is like
you're missing this cultural revolution.
I'm missing this band is every 5 feet.
I just want to add in here that 1992 was the year grunge stole Christmas.
Remember the documentary, 1991, the year punk broke?
The year punk broke. Yes. But I'm at a school in Germany, in Stuttgart, that is an army school where there was Canadians, French, Americans, a little bit of everybody that's over there at the UN and stuff. But we didn't know about Nirvana. Like, no, it wasn't every 5 feet. You know,
you were in another continent, another hemisphere,
and everything. So seeing Nirvana on Saturday Night Live, I was like, holy shit, this is way better than any of the like glam rock, or like, I just really wasn't into much of the glam rock.
If I just think about like it's funny, I'm trying to put it in perspective because I didn't know you when you were that age, so I'm thinking like, what was going on in popular music when you left the country?
My favorite,
that would be mind blowing.
My favorite band before like I found out like punk and underground music was Living Color. I love Living Color, dude. Time's Up, even to this day, is an amazing album. Like, I love Living Color. So that was probably the only band I was really into. My brother would like In Excess. I may have like listened to some In Excess every once in a while. Whatever a young kid would be into. You know,
that's all you're exposed to.
You don't know. But yeah, seeing Nirvana on Saturday Night Live, I like instantly had to go to like the Post, buy their tape, cassette tape, yeah. And I just like burnt the shit out of it, you know. Like I played that till destroyed, and like then I came back to the States and I'm like, oh, Nirvana, like, yeah, asshole, they're huge, we know this.
Yeah, at that point they're like arena rock.
I'm sorry, excuse me. And so then coming back to the States and stuff, and definitely had some friends who were more into independent music and punk scene. I had a friend that was a little older than us that I don't know how he was all into magazines and like staying up on stuff, and he found out there was concerts, and the first live concert I ever went to was back in the States. When I came back was I actually went to a Bikini Kill show at Brookwood Hall. For people who are not locals, Brookwood Hall here in Dayton, Ohio, where we shoot this, Brookwood Hall is, I don't know, how would you call it, not even a hole in the wall. Like, a hole in the wall is giving it too much credit.
Yeah, it was a concrete box in a mud pit. It was just this old biker hall, like literally like a VFW type of hall. But yeah, it was just an empty concrete box.
It was
like I think it was probably originally like some sort of warehouse or something.
Something like. But it was the size of like a picnic shelter building. Like, it wasn't very big. Like, but it was in the middle of it was awesome as like a teen, because you could go out to this punk rock club in the middle of fucking nowhere and do God knows what.
Yep. It was literally owned by a biker club.
Yeah.
And promoter Ken Gross would rent it from them and bring great bands into town. I saw Fugazi there.
Yeah.
God, he had NoFX, Green Day, like so many bands that came through.
I remember seeing Green Day there, and there was only, I mean, it was still packed, but there was
compared to what
300 people maybe there.
Yeah.
Like, it was, but
BJ still had dreads, and they were driving in the touring in the bookmobile,
and that was put on by a local promoter named King Gross. And I thank him because without his exposure, I wouldn't have seen half the shit. But again, like, the first band I saw was Bikini Kill, and people who aren't familiar with Bikini Kill, they're kind of like they were one of the first like Riot Grrrl feminist bands, but they were like down roots. They were a punk rock band, and I could get behind that this was an independent. They're making their own tapes, blah blah blah. It's packed in here. This sounds awesome. Like, I really like. That was what got me hooked musically. Was that?
That was your spiritual.
That was my spiritual, which makes sense because later on, I do like rock and punk bands still, but I still prefer female vocals over them. I don't know why. Some people, like tomatoes. Some people don't like tomatoes. And this is just one of the things I can't explain. I prefer majority. I mean, my punk rock collection, I pride on it, is if you like girl rock from like the 90s on, I pretty much have it. Like, if it was a little 7-inch or something, I pretty much have it, especially like a punk rock band. But I think that goes back to the first experience being a teenager, walking in this club where you had absolute freedom and everybody was creative and like, I'm home. This is what I went to this and this didn't feel right. This didn't feel right. Here, all these people are creative. It's free, freedom. And I think that's what got me hooked was that. So I'd say like that early, like going to that Bikini Kill rock show, sorry, is what...
Say it 12 times.
Yeah, is what gave me my first taste of what I liked. And from there, like, bands like Team Dresch is today one of my favorite bands. And from those is like the Butchies, Heavens of Betsy is one of my favorite bands, of course I'm a huge like Slayer Kenny fan, but I was Excuse 17 and Heavens of Betsy fan, so of course I'd be like a Slayer Kenny fan. But yeah, and
seminal Riot Grrrl bands. If you're not familiar, that's what the internet is for. Google those bands.
Google those. And being a guy at like 16, 17, it was a little weird sometimes ordering this. But I got lucky because a lot of people who work for those labels and stuff accepted, like, people are into that different music, even if you aren't necessarily a girl, So, but yeah, I'd say, and then like, of course, your classics like Misfits and Sabbath, like...
Maybe that's where I should dive in.
Yeah,
right around that time is when we met.
Yeah.
So okay. So again, we're giving away our age. We're old dudes in our 30s. Mm-hmm. So we grew up in that whole 90s Lollapalooza alternative thing that happened, and again, I'm trying to think early experience.
What was one of your first shows you went to that you can act? I try to remember, and both of you and I have done concerts and traveled, so I sat down the other day and I was like, have I beat that like 2,000 point of shows yet? Because I don't know.
Yeah, it gets blurry because I was so into music at such a young age. I remember seeing like Creator, German thrash metal band. I remember seeing Biohazard. I remember, in junior high, I got all into all these.
What would you say, punk show?
Well, see, I think that was the first stuff I saw live were more metal. Because I grew up in that era when a lot of the punks and the metalheads started, like, cross-pollinating. Like, everybody all skated together, and that's when the whole kind of thrash thing that happened. Like, when I was a little kid, I guess...
Well, you had thrash,
I'm trying to
but
put
yeah,
it in
you still had
chronological order, because I guess I'm skipping head into junior high. My grandpa was into old school country, and he exposed me to, like, Johnny Cash and, Hank Sr., and... My mom was a Beatles fan. My dad was an Elvis fan. My dad's best friend, who I grew up thinking he was my uncle for the longest time because they always called him Uncle Gary, but he wasn't actually related to us. He loved Elvis. He had a room in his house that was like a shrine to the king.
The only vacation my family ever went to. My mother felt the need that we had to go to the Graceland. Nice. So, I don't know, it was like 8 or 9. We went to Graceland and where Kennedy was shot. I don't know why, but that's why we had to go to those two spots. But
that's some real alien talk.
Yeah.
You know what kind of ties into real alien talk and weird stuff like that around that time? When I was a little kid, I'm old enough to remember Michael Jackson before he was creepy. When like the
was
only...
there a time when he wasn't?
Yeah, I remember
kid,
ABC.
I remember when he was black.
Creepy.
I was a huge Michael Jackson fan.
Dude, he took Webster to the Emmys or something. Come on.
We have Ben and SG1 join us just in the little background.
I'd like to say I watched Hee Haw every Saturday while we're talking about this.
I didn't really watch Hee Haw, man.
And the Monkees,
hilarious.
and Gem and the Holograms, all these things from my childhood that, were influences and make me love music.
If I can just say really quick, I was very naive. I'd catch Monkees on, like, Nickelodeon. And I believed it was a current show. Like, I didn't think it was... I thought it was just happening, it was just new to me.
Yeah.
So, I thought that with Batman, too. It was just like a new Batman show. It took place many years before I was born.
Well, I know that at cartoons now, when I see them on, like, Netflix or reruns, and I'm like, wait, I saw that on the rerun. I didn't see that for real. Damn it.
So, we digress. Yeah. All the different things that I listened to as a child and always loved music, and somehow I gravitated to rock. I had older brothers who were into, like, the 70s arena rock, and they exposed me to Black Sabbath, and they were into Zeppelin and Rush, and, all the bands from that era. And so that was a big influence on me, and I remember listening to my parents and my older brother's vinyl records. And I remember my dad had a Molly Hatchet record that I thought was so badass because they always had that cool Conan the Barbarian
they had the coolest
artwork.
covers.
They did.
They were like a southern rock band. Like the covers didn't fit the sound of the record.
Yeah, I was very disappointed when I actually heard Molly Hatchet.
Yeah, I mean, they still rocked at that age. I hadn't discovered punk yet. You don't come out of the womb with a mohawk. So there's all these different.
I did actually.
and it was blue too. And so all these things that planted those seeds throughout my life, and then in junior high was when I really, because I was into like your hair metal. I was into, because that's all I knew. That's what you saw on TV. That's what you saw on MTV and what you heard on the radio. The most rockin' hard stuff was like the 80s hair metal.
See,
stuff.
I never got into the hair I thought it was kind of silly, but like
it was very silly. Yeah. But it was the most like rockin'. It was the loudest.
I understand, but I just never
anti-authority kind of when you're a rebellious little kid.
I'll reiterate this one more time. I think I've mentioned this every podcast so far, but Wasp, the Crimson Idol.
Yes.
Best fucking concept.
So you said this last. What is the concept
of the Crimson Idol? Is this kid who dreams of being a rock star. He eventually makes it to be a rock star, and he realizes the extreme disappointment of it. Like, it's not what he thought it would be. He becomes.
Are you for sure this is the concept, though?
Look it up. Look it up. He calls his parents when he tells them he has a gold record. And his dad says, I don't give a fuck. and he hangs it up, commits suicide.
I don't want to listen to that now. That's sad as shit.
It is pretty downbeat.
That's pretty deep. That's pretty deep.
Not something you put on during a happy period in your life. But,
hey man, when I was a little kid, I loved Wasp. Again, I loved rock music, and I started diving into anything. And I remember buying like everything from David Lee Roth's solo albums on cassette because Van Halen was the biggest band in the universe at the time, and then. From there, I remember getting Megadeth's Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good on cassette because the album cover was so crazy. It's a big skull and the eyes were bolted shut and it had the big bolts covering the ears and it had the big hooks in the mouth. I was like, this looks gruesome. This is awesome. A little kid that always loved horror movies and had a strange fascination with the occult. It spoke to me. And then it was just like the fastest... Iron Maiden and Judas Priest were the heaviest bands in the world. So when then you discover, like, thrash metal, and you're like, whoa, they're taking, like, the technical skill of heavy metal with the intensity and aggression of punk.
I could get into a little more Judas Priest. For some reason, I like...
Dude, I
remember a little bit more thrash, like, a little bit more...
I remember seeing the Ramones on MTV. Remember when MTV, again, showing my age, actually played music?
Do 120 minutes. Come on. That show was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Headbangers Ball, 120 minutes.
I did like the British guy they had on 120 minutes for like the beginning. He really annoyed me, but the music was, I could do with music. Just skip him.
So hard rock, classic rock. Some older kids in my neighborhood that were skateboarders. They were the cool kids. They had, crazy long hair and mohawks and tattoos, and they listened to this crazy music that was like, what? This isn't on TV. This isn't on the radio. What is this? And it was like some secret society. It was some cool thing I'm discovering. It's like I had this hidden treasure map to the greatest, purest rock and roll in the world, And so, and it was so like this special secret, this hidden thing, this gem that so few people knew about, these cool bands out there. And I just kept digging and digging, and I would read the magazines, and I remember, I was such a nerd that I would go through the liner notes, and I wanted to read who produced it. I wanted to see who they thanked. I discovered so many bands just because bands would thank bands they toured with in their liner notes. And I'd be like, I gotta go out and buy their record.
Or you find two bands that were on a label that you're like, hey, wait, let me go see what else is on this label, because these two bands are killing it, so let me see what else they have.
So again, like, being into hard rock, discovering harder rock, discovering punk rock, and then in those formative years, the whole, as Chad mentioned, the whole 90s alternative thing happened. And again, giving away our age, but I remember, like, all the misfits, not the band, but like the ragtag kids that we hung out with, the skateboarders and the goths and the punks and the metalheads, we were collectively the freaks. So we were all our own little crew. So it's like, oh, hey, the weirdos from art class that listen to Depeche Mode and New Order and The Cure. And then, we go hang out with our skateboard buddies and they're listening to, Black Flag.
Dude, I remember high school getting made fun of because I was wearing a Smashing Pumpkins shirt. Right? And literally a year later, they're like, the shit.
I saw Smashing Pumpkins, Pearl Jam open, Smashing Pumpkins Remain Support, and Red Hot Chili Peppers headlined. It was at the Cincinnati Gardens. And it was before everything really, really blew up. And
hanging from the rafters.
No, it wasn't. That was the thing. The stage was set up halfway. They cut off half the arena because ticket sales were so bad.
Hanging from the rafters.
The ticket sales were so bad, they cut off half the arena. The stage is in the center of the floor. Pearl Jam goes on. For me, I discovered Mother Love Bone. So I was like, oh, it's the guys from Mother Love Bone's band's opening. And Pearl Jam opens, and Eddie Vedder dives into the crowd, and no one gives a fuck. It's just like the Red Sea parts. Nobody cares.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just some opening band. Nobody's paying any attention. And then Smashing Pumpkins, and then Chili Peppers play, and and then a year later, I would go and see all those same fucking bands are like playing Lollapalooza, and it's now Eddie Vedder dives in the crowd and gets molested by teenage girls, and it's like a mob scene. And so, just living through that era and watching these little underground bands blow up and become rock stars. And then through that made me want to play music. You know, punk rock made it seem tangible. It made it seem like, oh, I can do that. And I didn't have to be some virtuoso, classically trained musician. You know, like if you learned a few chords and you worked hard and you know, wrote good songs, you could be in a band. Mm-hmm. And again, all the freaks and weirdos all hung out together, so I never, in high school, I played in a bunch of crappy garage bands because there was only a handful of musicians. And so I played mostly metal.
Was bass your first instrument you picked up?
Yeah, it was my first love because, again, in those formative, like, junior high years, and I'm into punk and metal, and I met this kid who was a guitar player, and, oh, well, his brother is a drummer. And so we were like, all right, I guess I'll play bass. And we had this idea we were going to start a band, even though none of us really knew how to play yet.
So since you're a musician, like most musicians, did you start out in a church, ska, or metal band?
Well, I guess metal.
Has to be one of those three.
Has to be one of the three.
I guess metal was the main thing. But as a kid, again, like my early bands, you know, when you're a kid in junior high picking up your first instrument and first learning to play, you know, you're playing cover songs.
Yeah.
Or if you are writing, your songs are really terrible, and you know you haven't really found your sound. And again, I was into so much different stuff. I had this eclectic taste because I was just absorbing everything I could. I just loved music, and especially independent music, because there's so much crap pop music that's just like, oh, this formula, it's been done to death, and you know, when you discover that, oh, there's this whole scene, this whole community of like-minded people who, you know, have a little more left-leaning politics, and they're more eccentric artists, you know, liberal-thinking people, and it becomes this community, and it's the island of misfit toys.
And pre-internet, you had to actually, like, go and seek.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, if you saw somebody in a Misfits Crimson Ghost skull, it was like a flag.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, shit, they're part of the team.
Yeah.
They're in the club. Mm-hmm. And you'd approach them and you'd talk to them because, oh, well, maybe we have stuff in common. We have this bond. You know, and now, because Jerry Only's a whore, you know, now, like, it's your, you know.
It's everywhere.
Punk rock starter kit, you know, you can go to the mall. They sell a Misfits shirt at Walmart. So how many millions of people do you think are now wearing that shirt, not even knowing who the hell the band is? Or like, man, it's a badass shirt, man. It's got a skull on it, man.
Got skulls. Skulls are very popular right now, so. But
I want to dive in really quick that I started off on the bass as well.
Were you in ska, metal, or?
Well, here's what neither. I attempted to play it as slow as humanly possible to mimic the Melvins.
I love the
Well, Melvins are kind of metal-ish.
It was definitely metal. It was slow.
What was your first punk rock show, SG1? Punk rock. Don't tell me like Debbie Gibson shit. Like,
well, my very first concert ever was Nirvana at the Hero Arena.
Mine too. With Boredoms, I was there too.
Okay, and check this out. The very first
when they were yelling racial slurs at the Boredoms during the night.
Boredoms opening was the very first band I ever saw live on stage.
They were the shit, dude.
Fucking blew my mind.
They had two drummers, fucking
Japanese noise, crazy screaming. Just picture you've never seen a band live before in your life.
And the Midwesterners.
And that's the first band you see on stage at the Hero Arena.
And the Midwesterners really gave them appreciation.
It blew my fucking.
Dude, it was crazy. I loved it because I'm kind of like that crazy, like no wave art rock. I don't know how to describe it. Just fucking crazy shit. But I like that. And I was like, they had two drummers and shit. They were fucking going ape shit.
Immediately the next day, I ran out. Like as soon as I opened, I went to Dingleberry.
Oh yeah.
The next day, bought their CD.
I got
Shout out to Dingleberries, the Savage Family.
Yes,
I worked at Dingleberries for a while.
Not many records.
Great
there.
store.
But yeah, the whole front row was just yelling.
Yes, everyone around me hated it. I fucking loved it.
Yes.
I thought it was the most alien, insane thing.
They made Nirvana look like they weren't even moving. Like, Nirvana did not. They didn't move. They just
and also
like,
on that show were the Meat Puppets.
Yeah,
which were a bit more normal.
Yeah, I'm not a Meat Puppets fan.
I wasn't either. I was still reeling from the Boredoms.
It's because they did that whole fucking it's off the MTV acoustic thing.
Well, this was before that, but that was
Kurt Cobain, the guy with Meat Puppets, did some shit together. That's why they fucking.
I believe at that show they sat in with Nirvana.
Yeah.
Their Meat Puppets are one of those bands. I don't want to piss anybody off by saying other bands, but they're one of those bands that their songs are better covered by other people. Because Meat Puppets, I'm not really a big fan of, but their songs covered by other people are amazing.
Right.
Is it just his voice, or what does it do for you?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what the formula is. Maybe they just slow it down, speed it up, like something. I don't know.
I think we rambled here. Let's try to pull this in. So punk, metal, hard rock. I have music ADD. I like my rock to rock.
Yeah.
So I'm playing in crappy bands, trying to,
Easy.
Garrett just almost took a bump.
This chair is going to just...
This chair is getting... So I'm playing in a bunch of crappy bands. I'm a teenage kid trying to find myself.
So you're saying your first band wasn't the best band?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. My first several attempts at bands were not very good. But
well, give us some names, man. Don't leave us hanging.
Yeah. Then come on. What was the worst band name?
Give us some names.
Come on, this is the dirt.
Oh God.
What was the worst band you think you've been in?
Yeah, what's the worst band name you've actually played with?
There's a weird thing with worst band I've ever played with.
No,
because
band
I was
name.
a musical
That'd be great,
slut and I
band
filled
name.
in for a lot of friends' bands. And I remember there was this one punk band in Dayton that I hung out with these guys a lot, and they used to open for my old band a lot, and they needed a bass player, and I remember I said, "Oh well, I'll play for you a couple gigs." I liked what they were doing, and they had gotten a new drummer, and he was really good. And I was like, "Oh well, maybe this crappy little punk band will finally get their shit together." And trying to rehearse with these guys, their guitar player would play.
Who is it? Come on, man.
Come on,
names. He would play a riff.
Give us the dirt.
And go, "Hey, I got this riff," and we'd try to work on a song, and he'd play it, and then I would learn it.
His guitar?
He was the guitarist,
Okay.
yeah. And he would write something and show it to us, and I'd play it, and me and the drummer would start working on it, and he'd go, no, it'd play like this. And he'd play it completely differently. And we're like, okay, and then we'd play it the second way, and then it's like this. And he couldn't play his own stuff. He was just so sloppy, and just so, ugh. So it was guys like that give punk rock the bad reputation of guys who can't really play 3 chords.
I mean, I've worked with several. I mean, there's a long-standing legend that I'll put this out. Legendary hyphen. There's a band I want to say their name, Rancid. That their main guy may not have his guitar on.
Yeah, I've seen that. But,
and just for those people who are listening, we're located in Dayton, Ohio, which Dayton, Ohio is you can't swing a stick without hitting basically a musician on the sidewalk or anything here. So
I was in the Oregon district last night, and I was making jokes like, aren't half the people on this strip right now in bands? But anyway, so
we do know people who are in 4 different bands.
Yes. So
they're all amazing.
Me being in crappy bands, trying to get booked. I'm a kid, so we're not old enough to get into bars. So we had to guerrilla produce and throw our own shows, and we would rent halls and put on these all ages shows. And I just sort of I discovered DIY punk rock just out of necessity. I was 15 years old and I couldn't get into a bar, so I was like, well, fuck you, I'm going to throw my own show. And then through that, I was out flyering at Brookwood Hall. And I was at some show at Brookwood, I don't even remember what it was. And I'm passing out flyers for some show that I was putting on. And I meet Ken Gross. And he's like, oh, hey, I'm Ken. This is my show. And he sort of took me under his wing and taught me some tricks and helped me out a lot and helped me understand the business side of the business a little more. And I'm like 16, 17 at this point. And then through growing up in a little town called Troy, Ohio, about a half hour north of Dayton, I had to drive to Dayton. I remember we would make trips, me and my friends.
You were the outsiders.
Yeah, we had to drive into Dayton to buy records and to go see bands, and because nothing was fucking going on in our little burg.
Which, growing up in Ohio, there's really only maybe 4 big towns, and Dayton is not by any means the big town, but what's scary is when you grow up in Dayton and people come in from shows and they're from these outskirt little areas 30 minutes away, and Dayton is coming to the big city. Yep. You're like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
This is the big city? Okay. Anyway, go ahead with that your story.
Putting on punk rock shows, meet Ken Gross, start getting in with bands from Dayton, start playing shows in Dayton, and I remember band I was in high school were playing at Canal Street Tavern, and my mom had to come to all the shows because I wasn't old enough to get in, so she had to chaperone me. And then around that time, I remember Ken Gross took over a little sub and pizza shop on Brown Street by the University of Dayton, and started doing shows in there, and then that's around the time that we all met each other.
Mm-hmm. So, well, that's good. Well, what about, let's say, since we did a little bit back on the rock part of things, let's go about wrestling. When was your first, like, maybe indie show you saw, or like what was like your first like indie fed you saw on TV, or that you got into that got you into it?
I remember being a little kid during the cable boom. I think young kids now don't realize like at one point like cable was like a big deal.
Yeah.
When
had the buttons on the box.
Our parents only got like 3 channels.
You had to decide and get up off the couch and push them what you wanted, or lay next to the TV and just push the button.
Remember rabbit ears? Remember fighting?
Yeah, I was gonna say before cable, you would adjust the ears to hopefully get the station from the next city or somewhere nearby if you could pull in the signal.
But yeah, being a child of the cable generation, watching the old world class championship wrestling from Texas and
Are we just talking about Global?
Yeah, Global and AWA and all the old stuff they used to see on ESPN. And then of course, WWE was becoming the big juggernaut, and I remember being a little kid and watching the the early WrestleManias and Rowdy Piper and then I also watching Superstation TBS 605 Saturday night.
We were talking about that pre-tape. Is we all were basically like TBS Superstation.
Yep, watching the old NWA, and they did the little studio show, and then there was the syndicated show that was on in like Saturday mornings, and then you'd see house show footage, you'd see arena footage.
I just remember like I did watch WWE, but I was more of the NWA. Like my guys were Sting. Muda, I thought was like the shit.
Oh yeah,
I was a kid. Muda, I was like, oh my god, this guy does a couple flips.
Yeah, first time I ever saw someone do a moonsault.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all the different wrestling from NWA, WWE, and all the different feds that were on TV. So then, just like music, when, you become a fan of something and you're really into something, whether you're into comic books or whether, everybody's a nerd about something. Everyone is a nerd about something. So if you're a nerd about sports, I'm not. But there are people out there that can give you every damn stat about every athlete on their favorite team. And, that's not me. But I can tell you about every musician that played on every record, and I can tell you a bunch of wrestling history.
Wrestling stats.
Because, you become a fan, and you become entrenched in it, and you start checking out international wrestling. And I remember being a kid and reading Pro Wrestling Illustrated to see all these independent feds and see all the stuff that wasn't on TV. And, oh man, there's like this whole different wrestling world that goes on in Japan and in Mexico. And so yeah, I was always reading the magazines because again, pre-internet. So
I feel in our lifetime we got to see a really interesting part of wrestling because in our lifetime it really went from the edge of territories to the thing it is now. Into being like you had magazine to magazine to magazine, pass tapes around to internet. We really got to see the goods and the bads of this growth.
The magazines back in the day were kind of the internet of the day.
Yeah.
Those were like 6 weeks behind. So you never really got current wrestling news.
I would always go into
but
Little Professor
names.
bookstore.
It was the same thing with bands. Like I'd read a couple like punk magazines, and I'd at least this band, blah blah blah, give a description. Like I like that, so I'll check it out. Wrestling magazines and rock, the same thing. Like I want to go check out this fed because they do this.
And like looking for records back in the day, you took a lot of chances. Like maybe if you checked out a band that was on a label you liked. Maybe you want to always like it.
See, that's why
without the internet, you had to like take a chance buying the CD.
Well, that's why I was a huge fan of 7 Inches.
Yeah.
Because then you got 2 to 4 songs. Unless you're a punk rock band, then you got 28 songs on a 7-inch. But you got a little bit like, okay, I'll buy that. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, so. Did you go to like big WWE shows, GeeGee, or did you like? Man, I didn't really experience a WWE show till like later on. Yeah, big show.
I never actually growing up. I never had any family members that were into wrestling or anything, so I never went to see live events. I watched it religiously on TV, read the magazines, watched pay-per-views. I was a wrestling fan my whole life, but yeah, never actually went to a live event until man, I think I was like 21 maybe. I was on tour in a band called the Migraines, and I remember it was a Christmas present one year. Our singer bought the band tickets to go see.
So you guys as a band
to go see Nitro.
That's awesome.
Go see WCW Monday Nitro in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I remember like being like, okay, Hulk Hogan came out, and I was like, okay, I get it. You know, all those years, again, I was always a fan of the underdog.
Yeah.
You know, always, whether it was bands or wrestling, you get tired of the mainstream. You get tired of, God, this guy's on TV all the time. There's so many great, talented people that aren't getting a break.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Do you remember when Nikita Koloff showed up the first time and everybody was trying to boo and I'm like, this guy's amazing!
And again, this will be a theme.
Different.
As you know, as we keep doing more and more of these podcasts, it'll be a theme of how similar wrestling and music really are. You know, both are kind of a form of, you know, a performance arts, and both are sort of like, you know, carnies. You know, we're all carny folk. You know, we're all minstrels traveling, you know, singing for our supper.
Yeah. Well, for me, I didn't see a WWE show till really later on, but doing booking for bands one summer, I was like, damn it, I'm going to see ECW show in Philadelphia.
Oh, this is a great story. I asked him before the show.
Yeah. So, try to make it look quick. So, I wanted to see ECW show live really bad. So, we booked this tour, and we happened to make one of the days in Philadelphia, and crazy enough it was, the weekend was I happened to book a show that was part of a fashion show at this club, and then later today we went to the wrestling. So, we got there, and as like, I was a late teen maybe, something like that, like 19 maybe, or around that age maybe when I was there. But we pulled up, and we had all this damn music equipment, and I think it was 2 cars, and ECW Arena was in a not so good neighborhood. It was literally on the other side of the tracks. We're like, fuck it. So we get out and we wait, and it's a huge line to get into this place. So wait in line. To make the day even better, an ice cream truck rolls up. And what is in that ice cream truck but WWE wrestling ice cream bars? So I'm sitting there eating Hillbilly Jim, happier than shit, waiting to get in this arena, you know? So I go in, buy my ticket. I believe it was only $10 to get in.
And as fate would have it, what was the main event on that card?
Born to be Wired. Just by chance, happened to be the Sabu and Funk barbed wire match.
Yeah, does that blow your mind, wrestling fans? They were on tour, had a day in Philadelphia, went to go see ECW. They were ECW fans, had seen it on TV, had followed it, wanted to see it live, and by complete fluke, they didn't even know what the card was. And the main event is Sabu Terry Funk barbed wire match.
And it was insane. It was insane.
Yeah, that would be a life-changing experience.
I remember being so close that when they walked out, that my one friend put his hand out dumb like an idiot and got cut by barbed wire by one of them. But I distinctly remember it being fucking insane, and just the crowd, like, I think that's what did it, same thing as Rock, what did indie wrestling, it was the crowd in that room.
It's that organic crowd
was just
participation,
fucking,
you know?
dude, it was insane. And I distinctly remember the only person that got too damn rowdy and thrown out was this kid who was maybe 9 years old in front of me, threw a fucking bottle into the ring, and security was like, no, you're out. And he escorted this fucking preteen out to the goddamn streets of Philadelphia in the dark and go, you're out. But also I remember when we got in there, we're looking around, there was just like, there's stands to sit on. We're like, what the fuck's the chairs? No, they were in a pile. You went and got your own goddamn chair and sat it down. So, yeah, that was my first indie experience, you know, in ECW, and that kind of like blew my mind right there. I was just instantly hooked. And it was just by the match that was going on, and just the whole fucking roar of the room was just insane, you know. So yeah, I
similar to a great live concert experience. Again, the theme of this show, punks and pinfalls, and how the two worlds aren't as different as people think. But it's just that vibe where you gotta, you know, you find home, you find community, you got a whole bunch of people that have a similar passion, they're into similar things, and you can come together, and you see people from all walks of life, and people from all different backgrounds enjoying this entertainment, you know, again, whether it's, you know, music or wrestling, coming together and having this experience together.
And I guess we'll do some plugs right now.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up here soon. This was a fun show. We rambled a lot, but I think it was a great time.
We really want to take the first couple shows and let you guys just know where we're coming from taste-wise with wrestling and music and a little bit of background, so you can kind of just get our feel of what we're trying to let you know. So, but yeah, a little...
and talk about music. Let's talk about concerts. Last week we plugged... the Tear Out the Heart. We opened the show today with a little sample of Tear Out the Heart. Again, they're going to be at Rockstar Pro Arena Saturday, January 24th, 6 p.m. doors. Advanced tickets are $10, available at rockstarproarena.com or from any of the local bands. Coming up in February, on Saturday, February 21st. Again, we can tie this into wrestling. Rockstar Nation, if you've ever wondered what that crazy... song that OI4K comes to the ring with, it is Gut Shot by a local Dayton, Ohio based band called Hail to the King. Well, I don't know why they're changing their name, but they're changing their name. So, they're having a big party in celebration of their new name. They're going to announce their new name. It's a rare hometown show from a popular hometown band. And again, they do OI4K's entrance music. So, Hail to the King, Saturday, February 21st. And they'll be announcing their new name at the show. The Initiative will be getting back together for a reunion show that night. Other local bands on the bill, February 21st, are Eternal Void, Believe, When the Tigers Broke Free, and Absent Youth. Again, advance tickets $10, day of the show $12. And then the following Saturday, February 28th, my own little punk rock band. I play in a band called Legbone, and we're going to be doing a hometown show playing Rockstar Arena. With Chubb City, again, wrestling fans, you'll recognize Chubb City member Switchblade Jake Neely from our announced team. And Springfield, Ohio's Call It December, local rap metal band Pariah. And Yerf, who Rockstar... well, not even necessarily the wrestling fans. People, if you've come to a lot of concerts, if you've been to the building, seen concerts, our own sound man extraordinaire, Bo, we believe in Bo. He's in Yerf. So, again, it's kind of a family affair. We got a lot of the Rockstar family who are musicians and going to be performing Saturday, February 28th. 7 p.m., $7 ticket. So, real cheap ticket price. And
then
March.
In March, just announced we have Full of Hell playing there Thursday, March 12th.
They're from Central Pennsylvania, Ocean City, Maryland area. Hardcore punk grindcore band. They've been at the arena before. We had them at the arena in November. They were on tour with Weed Eater and Laser Wolf. So Full of Hell coming back to Rockstar Arena on Thursday, March 12th.
Tickets will be available on the website here soon. And then February 6th, Rockstar Pro Wrestling's anniversary 3. A big pay-per-view.
3 years of Rockstar Pro Arena. We're excited that we're going to have a great time.
And you made a big announcement on Wednesday. What was that?
The main event is going to be wild. I can't even describe it. 5-on-5 tag match. But it's going to be for the Rockstar Pro Championship. Team DJ Hyde versus Team Jake Christ. If Jake's team wins, Jake retains the title. If DJ Hyde's team wins, Hyde becomes Rockstar Pro Champion once again. It's an ultra-violent Island of Death match. So not only is it a 5-on-5 tag match with the title at stake, but the ring will be surrounded by barbed wire.
And we've been doing some diagrams of what the hell this is going to be.
It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be crazy. You don't want to miss this at all.
So, one last thing. We're running out of time, but we wanted to mention Google the Indianapolis Colts doing a Ric Flair promo. It's a great little pop culture thing going on this week involving wrestling.
And just to let you know, on any tickets you need for our concerts, go to rockstarproarena.com. And then on there, you'll see, click on the bands or the ticket info, and there's links to Ticket Rumba, and you can get any of your tickets right from the Ticket Rumba.
Awesome. Well, we got to wrap it up. Thanks for joining us in the studio, SG1 and Ben.
Peace out.
Listen to their show, Real Alien Talk. They had a great episode this week with guest star, the Catalyst, Dustin Reyes. And so we're out.
Yeah.
Check us out every week. We're going to keep constantly adding new content, new episodes. Punks and Pinfalls episode 3 will be coming soon. And check out Real Alien Talk, all on the Rockstar Pro Podcast Network.